Welcome back to the Graphic Design 2 lessons on web design. In this lesson, the fourth lesson, we're going to take that previous topic of sitemaps and actually implement it and start looking at Dreamweaver as our web design tool for site creation. So as quick review, we're going to create this site. So we're going to be creating a total of 6 pages. A page called index.html, red.html, green, blue, yellow, and orange. Yes, very original. But it's a good way to see the changes and get used to linking information and formatting some very basics of a web page. And then we're going to continue to use this practice site through the next series of lessons and build upon it and practice some of the basic skills that you're going to be using for the remainder of this class. I'm going to go ahead and launch Dreamweaver now. If you remember in the second lesson, I believe it was in part 2, you were asked to create a root folder. So we're going to go ahead and use that root folder. And to get to it, I'm going to go to Site, Manage Sites. Now you will probably only see the one site that you created as part of that lesson. You can see I have a bunch here. So I'm going to select the root folder I've created for this lesson, which is Practice Site. When I click Done, it will load its contents into my files palette. Now you see there's nothing there. To get started, let's create a new HTML page. So from my welcome screen, I select HTML, and it's going to open a blank page. We want to make sure that we are in the design view, and this is going to function much like a word processor. It's not a very fluid design program like Photoshop or InDesign. It's going to function very much like a text editor to a certain degree, and we'll learn ways to make it a little bit, to spice it up a little bit, so to speak. So I'm going to start, and I'm just going to add in some text to work with here. So I'm going to make a title for this page. I'm going to call it, actually instead of index, I'll call it homepage. Very original. I highlight this, and now in my HTML tag selector in my properties menu, I can go ahead and apply some basic text formatting. So I could go under the format and I could choose paragraph, heading 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll go ahead and make it heading 1, which is kind of the largest text, and I'll make it bold, and I don't want to italicize it or anything else. This is fine for now. We're not going to go too crazy, but some of the basic text formatting like bold, italicize, size of the text is all going to be located under the HTML tag of the properties palette. From here, I'm going to create some more text, and if we look at my sitemap, you see here, these are the 4 pages I'm concerned about right now. I want to link to home, red, green, and blue. So I'm going to go ahead and add that text in here. Home, I'll just put a character space in there. Red, green, and finally blue. And I can highlight this text. I'll just make it a little bit larger. We'll play with heading 3. Now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change what's called the title of the page. Now the title of the page has nothing to do with the actual page content, but has everything to do with what is displayed in the tabs of a browser. So if I put homepage up here in title, right at the top of my screen, I'm going to go ahead and save this now. So I go to File, Save As. Because I've specified a root folder, my root folder is a destination, this page is going to be called index. Now when I preview this in the browser, to preview I go up to the little globe button here that says Preview/Debug in Browser. I can select from any browser that I've loaded on my machine. I believe the defaults on your computers are going to be Safari and Firefox. The reason you can select multiple browsers is because sometimes browsers display the same page slightly differently. So you can go ahead and make sure that your page is going to look the way you want it to in multiple browsers. Now I'll choose Firefox. You see my page is now displayed. If you look up at the top of the tab, it says Home Page. That whatever is displayed right there is going to be dictated by the text that you put in this title dialog box at the top of your screen. Now an easy way to recreate this page is simply going to be to save as. So I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to save this as red. Try to avoid using caps here. And my red page, my blue and green page are going to look similar as well. So I'm going to go to Save As again, and I'm going to put blue. I'm going to hold off before doing the green because there's always more than one way to do something. So I want to give you options so that you can find the best route that works for you. I'm now going to edit these pages quickly just by highlighting and changing my text. And if you look at the tabs on the top of my page here, you'll see here's blue.html, red, and my original index file. I'm going to save because I've made some changes. When I go to red page here and change my text, change my title as well, you notice that there's a little star next to this file name at the top. That means that there are unsaved changes, and the browser will always prompt you to save before you view any page changes in the browser. So I'm going to save again. Now let's look at page formatting. To format the properties of a page, if I look under my properties dialog box, we see page properties. So I can click on this and there's all kinds of options available to me. Appearance, links, headings, etc. Right now I'm just going to stay at the top category of appearance, and it will say CSS. And I can choose text color. I want to look at background color. On the red page, I'm just going to pick red for my background. I'm going to say OK, and it will change my page background color to red. I'm going to do the same thing on the blue page. Go down and change page properties. Background color to blue. Now you see here we could also put a background image in there. So if you made a nice kind of gradient fade in Photoshop, you could actually load that image as a background. I try to avoid telling my students to use background images because what tends to happen is anytime you put text over an image, it starts to become tough to read. That image would need to be processed in like Photoshop in order to really take out a lot of the contrast so that there's a strong contrast between our text and our background image. But we're not doing that right now. We're just doing simple page formatting. This is actually more of a lesson about linking information. So currently I have 3 pages built, or saved I should say. Really only built one and copied it. And in my files palette, you see now that my files are located there, blue, index, and red.html. In order to link information, all I have to do is select something. So in this case, I'll select home. In my properties palette, there is a box here called link. I have a couple options. I could type the name of the file. All right, if you know the name of the file, that is probably the easiest. However, if you misspell it, as I have here, that won't work. This is actually called index. Must include the file extension, so index.html. And you see now this text is blue and underlined, so it is a link. I highlight my red text. My second option is to click the Browse for File button next to the link box. It's going to browse and I pick whatever file I wish to link to. Red. Now I've created a blue page, so I'm going to highlight the blue, and the other option is to use the Point to File button. If I click and hold and then drag over to my Files palette, you see I can go ahead and populate that link box. So if I do this to my other pages, I'll go to red, and I kind of like the Point to File. It works very nicely for quick linking of information. Red, blue, and just to change things up, I'll demonstrate again, I can go to Browse for a file to link that information, or I can simply type it in. But either way, what we're doing, ooh, my mouse got a little crazy there. What we're doing is we are basically specifying where this link is going to go. Now you notice I've left green out on all my pages. I'll show you a little way to cheat. If you know that you're going to have consistent navigation, and that's the whole reason we create one of these, is to make consistent navigation that makes sense. I already know from my sitemap that I'm going to have a file called green.html. When I create this page, I can go ahead and create a link by typing in the name of the file, even if I haven't created it yet. So if I save this now, and I go to File, Save As, and I call this file green.html, it brings all this linking information over with it. So all I have to do now is format my page. All the information about the links and where they go comes along with that Save As command. So there's a couple different options for you here. Now blue, I'm going to go ahead and link it to the green. Again, you can always opt for different methods to link your information. Save. Now if I preview in Firefox, you'll see that all my pages are now linked together. And notice that the title of each page is changing because I've changed it in this dialog box in the top of my page here.